Hello, sir. Can you tell us a little about your MBA life at IIM Calcutta and what were your key takeaways from that?
Okay, so that's a huge question though, especially if I have to answer with takeaways as well. Life at AMCAL, I think is very different as compared to any other MBA college. So what we call ourselves over there is the Joker tribe. So MBA is supposed to be an experiential program, and it was very experiential. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of learning, and there was a lot of learning outside the classroom as well. I was part of the dramatics club, so I used to do a lot of theater over there. We actually went to Valhalla, the XLRI Fest, and won over there in the one act play competition. So that was really nice. I went for an exchange program to France, so that was fun. Traveled to Europe, right? Like our culture over there, again, in terms of extracurricular activities, in terms of the bonding that we had, was really fantastic. Some of the faculty over there were, again, excellent, right? I remember we had one professor who actually did his PhD under John Nash. So yeah, that kind of blew my mind when I found that out. And there were, again, fantastic people over there. What sort of was striking for me was, you kind of realize once you go to a place like that, that everyone is so great. Like, your peers are so great, and it's a very humbling experience like that. And once you kind of go through that, that builds confidence as well, because, well, they are great people, but you are among them. So that way it was really nice. And I guess one of the striking differences between IIM Cal and any other college was that we were very together as students, right? So especially say during the placement processes, etc. Every student would be accompanied by someone else right till the final person gets placed. So that was really awesome.
So you mentioned that you were a part of the dramatics club in your college. So how did you go about that? Were you like already into theatre, or did you actually get into that while at IIMC?
So I was during I'm a mechanical engineer. Like started off as a mechanical engineer. So we formed a group called the Lords during my second year of college, and we took part in about 3 competitions, and I think we won all 3 of them. Then again, we took part in the third year, and that time we became way too ambitious, and we took part in 5 competitions. Could not really compete in 5, so we bowed out of 1. Remained 4, and so yeah, I think we won 3 that year. No, we won 2 that year. So yeah, so that was sort of the foundation for my theatre bug. So once I came to IIM Calcutta, I honestly was not part of any other committee except for the theatre group. So that was my only sort of extracurricular activity that I did over there, except for, of course, either going to the gym or playing sports.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So you have written a book as well. So can you tell us a little about that?
Oh, that was a really fun experience. So this was in my second year of undergrad.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of people. So me and my roommate. So we used to write poetry. And again, so my roommate was a guy from Shimla, and again, brilliant person. And there was this another guy I remember. His name was Sanjay Adhikari, and again, he was another brilliant poet. The kind of poet that you have to like read 3 times their poetry to sort of understand it. Like one of those genius kind. I remember once he sort of came to my room and just picked up a random sort of a notebook and wrote an amazing poem at the back of it on the spot, and just left it there. Did not care for it, and I saved it. And at the time when the 3 of us sort of got together thinking about writing a poem, and then I pulled that out, and and that book actually has a few snippets, like a 4-liner or a small poem at the start, talking about each poet that is part of that project. So we used that poem for him over there. So we decided that, so the 3 of us got together and we thought that, let's break some barriers, and so we wanted to make it multilingual.
Yeah.
So we roped in 2 more people who used to write in Hindi. So another roommate of mine, Vinay Sehra, so he used to write in Hindi, and again, a fantastically bold poet. So we got him in as well, and another person, and then the five of us sort of got together writing this poem, and of course a bunch of us had a lot of poetry written down the years as well. So and the entirety of that project was well done by us, except for the cover design, that is. So we roped in another person for the cover design of the book, but again, from editing to the designing part of it, how to sort of structure the book. So we divided into various sort of sections as per the kind of poems that were available to us, and but no restriction in terms of language. So that was really interesting, and it came out really well, to be honest. It was called The Good Night's Read, and we called ourselves the Poets. Yeah, but it was really fun, and I think it came out really well. We didn't really, of course, sell too many copies. That wasn't ever the intention either. Like the most that we would have sold would be probably about like 500, 600 copies at max, and that to like friends and family. But yeah, but it was a fantastic experience.
I mean, it's all about the fun that you have.
Exactly, right.
Sir, what was your favorite? Who was your favorite poet when you were writing? Who inspired you a lot?
And that's actually a difficult question for me to answer. Like, I think I inspire myself the most as a poet. Very honestly, right? Like, of course, I loved literature in school, and so the first thing that I did at the start of every new academic year would be to go through the English literature book at the start of it. So yeah, I really liked William Wordsworth, right? I liked him. Keating was really nice. But I also liked Hindi poets a lot. So my dad was a big fan of Hindi poetry and Sher o Shairi, right? So I grew up with that all my life. So a lot of my inspiration actually comes from Hindi poetry, to be honest, right? And I think Ramdhari Singh Dinkar is probably one of my favorite poets. So that's really strange like that, because I almost write exclusively in English. But one of my favorite poets is probably a Hindi poet.
Dinkar साहब की किताब है रश्मरथी. Have you read it?
No, I don't think so.
So I'll give you that. I
Sure.
have the copy with me. It's a very interesting.
Right.
उन्होंने पूरी महाभारत अर्जुना के लेंस से पूरी महाभारत के ऊपर उन्होंने किताब लिखी है.
Fantastic. Like, I remember this one poem called Hum Panchi Unmukt Ganke. I'm not sure like who wrote that, right? Well, again, it is one of those poems, right, that kind of stuck with me even today. Like, I remember it verbatim. So that's really nice. So yeah, I remember reading like a bunch of poets, right? Like, I remember reading Gitanjali during school. I remember reading some of Sarojini Naidu's work, right? So yeah, I think it's that is the kind of influence that we grew up with. And like, I remember I was in my 8th class, and a friend of ours, a classmate of ours, had gone to like Himachal, where basically Ruskin Bond lives, right? Like, I am forgetting the name of the city, or the town rather. Anywho, so he was basically on a holiday, right? And he ran into Ruskin Bond, like buying something on the streets. And then we came back, he probably got his number or his address, and then our English teacher was really excited to know that, and then we got together to write something like as a class, and everyone sort of contributed something and to send it to him. So that is where we kind of started, or rather I kind of started writing poetry way back in 8th class.
So what's your favorite genre to write about? For example, there is poetry when you write about your own feelings,
Sure.
for love,
Right.
for something about liberation. What was your go-to place when you were writing?
Again, like, it'll be difficult for me to sort of narrow it down to one. And again, if you were to read my book, you would see that. I used to write about love, yes. I used to write about suffering as well. Dabbled with a few darker, grayer themes as well. So yeah, I've written a poem called Crayons. So a little bit of abstract as well. So in now the later stages of my life, I've kind of given up on the concept of rhyming, and they are more free verses than anything else. But yeah, I've written a poem called The Stage. So again, this is all after, not the Crayons, but The Stage is written like during my time at Calcutta. So I've kind of dabbled in a lot of things, and to be honest, I feel that poetry sort of flows through you instead of you writing poetry, right? So I like when you feel a poem coming through you, it just comes out. And at times the themes don't matter, even the words don't matter. One of the poems that actually, so there was this one anthology that got published in IIM Calcutta, and Gulzar Saab was also published in the same anthology. And the poem of mine that got published was called Lucifer's Letter. And
can you recite that if you have that on you?
Of course, yeah.
Or any other poetry.
No, I can find that. Well, I'll have to look it up because I won't probably remember it as it is.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Because I do not want to start it and then go midway with that. Alright, so it's a little talk. So pardon me if it offends anyone. I have estimated the price of death. Sadly, it needs not to be bargained. Though sweeter are the last whispers of breath, the kiss is sweeter still attained. Infidelity of life has borne many of victims. Many have succumbed to her sweet fragrance. But death is a darling from whose womb stems the promise of eternity, the rhetorical penance. So come, why live when you can die? Abandon the whore for your true mistress. Close your eyes before you can try, and hold the dagger to your heart and press. So yeah, it is a little dark, a little sort of suicidal. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Amulya also writes very
Yeah, I also
yeah.
write poetry. Along the same lines, I mean, I also write darker poetry. So,
Right, I'd love to hear some.
I mean, do you want me to?
Yeah, sure, yeah. हिंदी में कहावत है कि कवि क्या मांगे दो काम. Right, like all a poet sort of needs is कि कोई सुन ले उनकी poems.
मुझे बिल्कुल आइडिया नहीं था कि आप लिखते भी हो क्योंकि यूजुअली वैसे बट इट्स वेरी लॉजिकल कि जितने लोग भी थिएटर करते हैं
Right.
वो पढ़ते हैं बहुत
Right.
लिफ्ट चीजें बहुत पढ़ते हैं क्योंकि
Right.
वो थॉट एस्टैब्लिश करना होता है.
Correct,
हम
correct.
व्हेन आई डिड थिएटर इन माय यूजी सो हमने गुलजार साहब को बहुत पढ़ा था.
Right.
और देयर इज दिस पर्सन कॉल्ड द ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर ऑफ फरहान अख्तर, मुस्तनसिर करके उनका कोई नाम था.
अच्छा.
तो उनको बहुत पढ़ा था हमने.
Right.
हैव दैट लेफ्ट थॉट ऑफ लिबरेशन
Correct.
बिकॉज देन यू आर एबल टू थिंक ऑन दोस लाइंस कि फ्रीडम भगत सिंह बहुत लिखते थे. अच्छा
बिल्कुल, exactly right. And he was super young.
Yeah, so I mean, this is very kind of graphic. This is the latest poem, so I'm going to
Alright.
recite this one. The name is Notes from a Dead House.
Okay.
I dozed off in a lukewarm can of cola as the sugary acid eats away at the pages of my memoirs. I run my fingers along the corners of old books and tables as soft paper cuts and splinters make a 5-inch incision in my heart. I bite into waxy lemons, choking on pieces of foam and swallowed words hydrochloric acid. I strain my vocal cords, lost somewhere in the shallow marshes near my grave. The taint of my crimes haunts my windows like a superstitious household hands trinkets to ward off omens.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Amazing. When did you write this?
About a couple months ago, I think.
Alright.
Yeah.
The Excel is treating you well. No, but really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me find another one though.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No,
Please,
of course, please.
So this one is called The Declaration. So this is one poem, as I said, right? Like I inspire myself the most. So this is the poem that I sort of keep going back to. When I can't really figure out or can't really feel inspired or do not really want to do anything, right? And at times when the world does not make a lot of sense to me, right? So it's called The Declaration, right? The pain of truth does not warrant a lie. I live a free man, a shackled man I die. The stinging stupor of sleep is not an ideal to uphold. The tempered steel of thought is the way to live by. I stand a marked man, for I chose life over death, so I declare war with my head held high. So yeah, so I kind of this was a poem that I generally end up printing out and posting on my walls when I'm not really feeling urge to excel anymore or fight anymore.
When did you write this?
This was way back again. I think this was I think in my UG only, undergrad, yeah.
And when did you start writing? I mean, in 8th?
In 8th standard, yeah.
So you've been writing have you been writing in those similar genre across the years, or has that changed?
No, so see, this was an inspirational one, right? The Lucifer's Raider was the darker theme.
Yeah.
I write about love as well, to be honest. I've tried out a bunch of themes. It's pretty cool. Okay, so this one is called Flesh and Stone. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of, as I said, right, Kabhi kya mange do kaan. I feel a pulse beneath the stone. It whispers to me, like she whispers at night, calling me to free her. The eyes that do not exist bear the burden of my gaze. The shock of my touch, so numbingly intimate, cracks her. She climbs out, a figure so profound I had not imagined, a figure so proud I had not hoped. So yeah, keep sort of jumping between themes. I've also written a poem called The Morning Hue, for that matter, right? Like all bright and cheery and stuff like that. But definitely then those are not one of my favorite ones though.
I actually agree with that. I mean, even the darker poems that I like are the better ones according to me,
Right.
and the cheery ones. I'm not a fan of the metaphors or whatever.
Right, yeah. Alright, yeah, but I think we should move forward now, otherwise this interview would never end.
So you walked away from your corporate career and you worked on a startup as well for a little while. So can you tell us a little about that? What did you learn, and why did you make that switch?
Sure.
How was the experience kind of different from corporate career?
Alright, so my first job was at Maruti.
Yeah.
Right, so that was a tough job. 6 days working. Used to go leave my home at 7 in the morning, get back by 7 in the night. So yeah, that was a really tough job, right? And then did my MBA, and then I was working with Urban Ladder in Bangalore. It was a startup, a fantastic place to work, right? Had floors very similar to what we have in this incubation center, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we used to veer around on scooters, play pool during break times. Absolutely, the typical startup that you sort of imagine. Fantastic people, had some of the most brilliant people I've met. What did not work for me was, the pointlessness of working for a corporate. At the end of the day, you spend a lot of time working, right? About 10 hours a day, easily, if not more.
Yeah.
So you're spending so much time to sort of build someone else's dream. That was something that did not sit too well with me.
Makes sense.
So I probably I wanted to do something else. Of course, doing something of my own was one of the options. But for me to first of all nail down one single idea. So I am an ideas man, to be honest. Bringing myself down to pursue one single idea was sort of difficult for me. So I kind of took a step back, quit my job, was just in Bangalore burning through cash, and I thought take some time off and think what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then as I was sort of contemplating the meaning of life, right, the career of teaching in an MBA college, being a professor, sort of jumped out. So I started teaching at one of your MBA coaching centers. I don't really remember which one, maybe it was Career Launcher. And so just to test out my theory, right, I wanted to teach. I thought that would be really fun and interesting for me. I tried that out. I think I liked it. So that was when I sort of decided, teaching is probably the career that I then want to pursue. Talked to a few people, tried to figure out, the kind of career that lay in front of me. And I really liked what I was hearing. It's a very, fulfilling field, right? So at the end of the day, about, roughly speaking, about 150 people, 150 students go, under your tutelage in a single academic year. Even if we say, 1% of them listen to you, or 2%, right? So that's like 2-3 people. And if you can change or impact the life of even 2-3 people in a single year, I think that is more than I was doing at a corporate job. So that part of it is very fulfilling. Secondly, there's a lot of freedom and agency that comes with this field. So I'm not answerable in the sense, I do not have a boss. I do not have targets like we do in corporate, right? I decide my own course outlines. Like, of course, it gets vetted and there are processes in place. But the ownership that I have of my own work is tremendous. And I decide my own timelines. It's very self-motivated, the field. So that took a little bit of adjustment, to be honest, right? Like, since we are kids, we are taught to sort of follow deadlines. And, targets are set for us. So it kind of becomes a little difficult to be self-motivated like that. But yeah, now I think I've gotten a hang of it. So that sort of agency, I think, is very, really, really needed. And again, I should actually commend XLRI as both as an institute and as an employer, because I absolutely love it over here. The kind of freedom that they give me to sort of pursue any of my research interests, any ideas that I have in terms of teaching or pedagogical techniques that I might want to follow. There is absolutely no pressure on me to, go any other way. So yeah, that's how I kind of ended up becoming a professor.
And what kind of anchored you towards marketing?
All right. I always, I kind of had a huge interest in human psychology. And this kind of, again, went back to when I was in undergrad. I used to read a lot of books about human psychology, read a bit of Freud, read a couple of other books. Now I don't even, to be honest, remember the names of those books, right? So human psychology, human behavior always interested me. So when I started thinking about my academic career, two broad choices, kind of jumped at me. One being, HR, and the other being marketing. So yeah, marketing just seemed a little more fun, to be honest, because there is at least more of a business angle involved with it. Like I'm not trying to diss HR, right? But like there's more of a business angle associated with it, and because of my earlier training as an engineer as well, right? Like although I am creative, I think I still have a very analytical bent of mind. So at least with marketing, there are still numbers at my disposal that I can play with. So it's a nice combination of human psychology and hard sort of marketing science. So that kind of interested me a lot. I worked during my stint at Urban Ladder. So the second sort of job that I was doing was B2B2C sales. So I was in contact with, say, for example, your builders and banks, trying to forge deal to between Urban Ladder and those organizations to basically sell more stuff to customers, right? So yeah, I had a bit of an exposure from a marketing point of view from there. My first job at Maruti, I was in the purchase division. So I was on this side of the marketing funnel, right? Like I was buying stuff from people. So still had a lot of close encounters with the people from marketing. So I think that there was definitely a sort of interest that kind of was building. And my internship was at HUL Unilever London. So I worked with the Cornetto brand, and that was again a fantastic experience, right? So I was involved with the early stage launch of Cornetto Minis and their shift towards sustainability, right? Unilever at that time was absolutely changing its strategy and moving towards more sustainable practices. So that kind of exposure sort of really pushed me more towards branding and marketing in general.
Nice, that's pretty interesting.
And I got to eat a lot of free ice cream as well. Yeah, I gained like 5 kgs in 2 months. And because there were also flavors that you would not get in India, right?
Yeah, true.
And I had some experimental sort of products as well. So there was this one in which the cone was made out of cookies. Not cookie dough, but actual cookie pieces.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't on the market even in Europe at that time. So they were just developing it.
So you have worked in corporates as well, and you've also worked in startups. So how was it different? Because corporates have a very well structured organization,
Right.
and startups are like not that structured. So how was that kind of different? Because a lot of us would be joining the startups and a lot of us would be joining like structured corporates. So how was the experience different?
Again, it was fantastically different, right? Like, so I worked in 3 organizations. Maruti, then like I shouldn't really say that I worked over there, but interned with Unilever, and then Urban Ladder, which was the startup. So Maruti was, insanely structured. A single change in a product that if you would want to, have, that would take approval right from me, who is the assistant manager, to the CEO of the plant. Right, so it would go through the entire process, and only then can you make any sort of changes. So in terms of flexibility, it was really awful. But because it was so structured, it sort of made my job very easy. Right, like I very precisely knew what I have to do on a daily basis. And if I talk about my managers, it was very true for their jobs as well. So that kind of reduction in variability, takes away a lot of pressure, or takes away a lot of uncertainty from your job, right? If I sort of compare it with Unilever again, so it was a far sort of it was a calmer environment as compared to Maruti. The processes were still there, but so I was in brand, right? So there things would work at a faster pace, but still under processes. So for example, if I say that when they were sort of trying to launch Cornetto Minis, the first process, like the first parts of the process, right, as you would have sort of studied in your branding and marketing courses as well, right, we started, the product was already there, right? So for example, we started with the branding, designing the logo part of it. So how that sort of iterates, how you approach how you probably approach an agency which comes in with the various ideas and go through a lot of processes over there, a lot of iterations, and then you have to get that approved. But it was again a far more relaxed environment like that, right? So that was different. Urban Ladder was chaos. It was absolutely mind blowing. So when I joined Urban Ladder, it had its office over a restaurant called Bawarchi. Right, so a couple of floors over that restaurant, and then they had like another couple of floors across the highway, in the building in front, across the highway in the building over there. So at times we had to sort of run for our lives through heavy traffic to sort of reach there. So anyway, but apart from that, like it was super chaotic, right? Like one day you're working on one project, and then suddenly you'd be pulled from that project to sort of work on something else. Then the priorities would shift, and then you would do something else. Then maybe there would be a higher level team shuffle, and suddenly your boss has changed, and you're spending say a couple of weeks in redesigning the entire strategy for your function. Right, so things like that would happen. Then after a few months, you would realize that the things that you've been working on suddenly are not in the top priority for the company, and you might be pulled from one team and then put in another team, and you have to do something else. So I started my career over there in international sourcing, and then I think about after 8 months or so, I was moved to the B2B2C sales, right? And the kind of strategy on a larger level also changes very dramatically, right? So Urban Ladder was supposed to be a technology company, then they wanted to start with premium products, and then they wanted to open their stores, physical stores as well. They wanted to sort of get products from China and Malaysia as well, which were not as good quality as solid wood products, right? So those kind of things keep changing. And then suddenly, if the funding sort of dries up, then there would be firing if people. So it's super chaotic. So after I quit, I think about in a couple of months' time, Urban Ladder went through massive layoffs. They laid off about 50 to 100 people in a matter of a month. So yeah, that's very scary, right? So I went to their farewell parties. A bunch of them were my friends, and again, so no sort of fault of theirs. There was no preemptive, like nobody told them that this was happening, and then suddenly one day you're out of job. Of course, they give you a severance package of about a month or so, or whatever the contract says. But yeah, you're suddenly out of job, and then you start doubting yourself, right? Okay, was I bad at my job that I got fired? So yeah, I was kind of lucky that I quit on my own before anything like that happened. Because you never know, right, at the end of the day, who gets fired. But yeah, so it's very chaotic when it comes to startups, and you really should be open to such sudden changes in your career. So you either in terms of your profile, or even like you should be open to making quicker switches as well. You should be open to not working for a few months as well, because I have a bunch of friends who are sort of working in who have been working in startups for the past 8 years now, right? So they end up switching jobs in say a couple of years, either because the company is sort of either doing well or not well, or there are better companies that come their way, right? So you can actually, but you can see a lot of growth if you stay in this startup game. So if you're jumping between startups, see if you find a good startup and you stay with it. So a friend of mine joined Urban Ladder with us. I'm Calcutta, and he's still at Urban Ladder. So that's 8 years now, right? So of course he's done fantastically well over there as a career option, great. And then I also know people who've jumped in these 8 years 2 or 3 jobs. And have amassed a lot of ESOPs, right? Gotten better positions, got salaries. So yeah. So it's a risky game to play, but well, there's fun in it.
So you have been teaching for so long, and how do you make sure that you are you are delivering the best quality of work, and how do you keep on improving yourself? Because there's a learning curve. When you must have started, you probably would not be as good as you are right now. So how have you improved over the years? How do you keep on challenging yourself and learning and getting better at your craft?
Sure. First of all, I haven't been teaching that long, right? I'm probably one of the youngest faculties at XLRI, and until very recently, I was probably the youngest. But yeah, you're very right. When I started teaching, it was challenging. It was easier probably for me as compared to other people, because again, I treat teaching as a performing art. I used to do theatre. I'm comfortable in front of an audience. So it was probably a little easier for me as compared to maybe a few other people. But yeah, it's a constant struggle, and it's a constant learning process. Right, so when I started teaching, so that spontaneity was always in my back pocket that I could sort of pull out. But you have to spend a lot time in developing the content for each and every class, right? So for every class that I used to take, especially during my first year, so an hour and a half hour class, right? I would probably spend about 10 hours preparing for that class. So that is a lot of time to put in, right? And during my first year, I developed 3 courses. So that's a lot of time that you put in terms of developing the course, and you have to read so much. So you have to read your books, you have to read your research papers, you have to read your HBR articles, you have to read what is happening in the field right now, right? So today I cannot even sort of exclude popular blogs about the subject, right? So if I'm, for example, teaching social media marketing analytics, I cannot really ignore what is being done in terms of social listening, or what Hootsuite is saying, or what HubSpot is saying, right? I cannot ignore that. So that way it's and again, so things like that change continuously. So that way I have to still put in that sort of effort, but at least now it's not 10 hours. I can do that in about 3 or 4, because at least the content that is directly subject matter related, right? That does not change drastically, especially with something that is research driven. That would not change very drastically. Maybe the practices would change, maybe the examples would change. So that at least buys me some time, right? So that time, then I try to focus on thinking about new pedagogical tools that I can sort of pick up for my class, right? That could be, say, in terms of exercises that I think about, how I can probably try and engage students, right? We were discussing earlier, the attention span has been going down, right? So how do you engage with a class is a huge sort of an issue. So I keep thinking about what kind of changes do I want to make So right now, for instance, I'm thinking about like start recording a few videos which can be supplementary to the course material. So those kind of things and ideas keep happening. Of course, you read a lot of HBR, you look at what other people are doing and benchmark yourself against professors in whatever fields. In different colleges across the world. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I try to at least keep myself updated and at least try to keep refreshing, what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it year on year.
This is the last question. So, what is your take on the XLIMC rivalry, and when they come on campus, whom would you support?
All right. So this is controversial, right? Both parts of the question. First of all, I'm really heartbroken that XLC rivalry is not what it used to be, right? Again, but I would say this on camera, and I would say this, let this be recorded, and to all the people out there, who've made videos of the rivalry and sort of spread them on social media, and then people harping about how this is so bad and so difficult. I just want to say that since MBA is an experiential program, there are certain merits to even something like this, right? I'll give you an example. Like it's a hostile environment, right? At the crux of it, like no matter what the language is being used, it's a hostile environment that is being provided to the visiting team, right? And super hostile. Let's again be honest about it. You guys would have also seen videos. I have lived it twice, right? It's super hostile. And when I went to Excel, it was really horrible. But yeah, it prepares you, right? I'll give you an example. Imagine you're working in a construction company, right? And a laborer falls from the 10th floor and dies, right? And you are the employee of the construction company, and now you are surrounded by 50 angry laborers who want to actually harm you physically, right? Shouting and really making life hell. You do not know whether you will survive or not. You do not know what to do. Now, any other MBA student from any other college except XLNC would find this to be a very novel situation, would not have experienced it at any time in their lives, right? But we at XLNC would have faced something similar. Not exactly similar, but something similar, right? And I think that is valuable, right? Like we know how to then handle a hostile situation. Right? We understand that something like this can possibly happen, and imagine like all of this is happening in a safe environment, right? Like if you're at a college, like 99.9% of the times you are super safe, right? Even when there's a brawl going on, like you're not really afraid of your life, right? And brawls never happen. Like we all know how brawls happen, right? Arey main maar dunga, and then 10 people would come and pull you back, and then just a couple of people would be shouting, and that would be the end of it, right? Most often than not. So the negative part of it has been blown way out of proportion, especially on social media, and nobody has ever talked about the positive part of it, except for it being a fun activity, if some people call it that. So yes, that is my take about the XLC rivalry. Now, my experience was again fantastic, both times. Right, so it was really horrible and really fun visiting Excel. They spared no they spared no expense. They were well prepared with slogans and everything. And okay, the suckiest part or the most difficult part is when girls point you out and point out your physical flaws and get very personal and very in your face. Right, and that at times can be difficult to recover from for some people. So that can get really aggressive at times. But yeah, it's all in good nature, all in good fun. It was a rivalry, right? So I had this XLC meet, and then I went for my internship. And then I think a roommate of mine or a really close friend of mine was from Excel. Like we never met, but just because there is an XLC rivalry, there is an XLC bonding, right? So the way students from IIM Calcutta and XLRI Jamshedpur were close was really incredible, right? It was never a rivalry out of those 2-3 days. We really felt connected. Both campuses really felt connected to each other. So again, so all of these positive aspects are being wiped away with the negative aspects as well. So that is a little sort of sucky. But yeah, so again, it was a really good experience. If XLC and I hope XLC and XLC basically happens this year onwards, maybe a toned down version of what it used to happen. But I hope it happens. Whom would I support it? That's a difficult question now. Because मैं तो तुम्हारी ही टीम में हूँ, right? अब पता नहीं देखते. So when I was I did my PhD at Lucknow. तो ABCL meet होती थी. मैं तो कैलको ही सपोर्ट करता था. मैं लखनऊ को सपोर्ट नहीं करता था. तो but yeah, I think I do not have a horse in the race anymore. तो अब मैं प्रोफेसर हूँ तो हाँ I'll support good sports. Yeah. All right, guys. That's super cool.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.